Kaufman is alive. I look at comic books new and old. Today I'm looking at a new comic book, Uncanny X-Men number 10 by Marvel Comics, Legacy number 710. It's written by Gail Simone. Andre Bresson is the interior artist. We've got a cover here by David Marquez, who's the other artist on this X-Men book. Cool cover. I like that it shows us what's happening in this book. That's always a plus. We do get a battle between the X-Men and these robot dog sentinels. I do like the design on these robot dog sentinels. I like that they use the classic Uncanny X-Men logo as well. Always gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling inside when I buy a new comic book with this X-Men logo on it. One thing I did notice on this cover is there's this big, like, sweeping, like, shadowy cloud character here. And I was trying to figure out who that was. And, there's all these new X-Men here. There's Calico, Ransom, Jitter. And so I figured this must be Death Dream in some sort of, using his, like, mutant power form, which we don't really see a whole lot of. But a cool cover. I like this. There's this little lost dog paper down here at the bottom, if you notice. I kind of like that. So this comic feels like I'm reading a X-Men animated series cartoon. That's what this feels like. It's got a pretty lighthearted tone. This whole issue is pretty much a self-contained issue. We've been focusing on Rogue a lot throughout this entire Uncanny X-Men series. I feel like this whole series could have just been a Rogue mini-series or solo series. But in this one, we actually get some narration from Nightcrawler. We're focusing on him. Some of the other characters in this issue get some time to shine instead of Rogue and Gambit. Although I'm not really complaining about Rogue and Gambit getting so much page time, but it is nice to see some of these other characters get some time because they've set up practically a whole new team of X-Men, all those new characters that I mentioned at the beginning. So it's nice to see them get their own adventure here, essentially. And like I said, we get some other viewpoints, like from Nightcrawler in this issue. And Nightcrawler's saying he actually feels more at home and he could take his X off and stay here forever. And this entire X-Men team is living in Louisiana, and Nightcrawler is just talking about how they all just feel like a family essentially now. So, it's not a base, it's not a mansion, it's not a school, it's a home. So that's the difference between maybe, this kind of X-Men team and some that came before it. So, but we see that there's definitely some problems going on here within this family, as all the new characters were all out at the mall, which I thought was a cool, little nod to previous X-Men teams where they'd always have issues of them going to the mall. And of course, obviously, the very first episode of X-Men, the animated series, had, Rogue, Gambit, and Storm and Jubilee all battling Sentinels in the mall. So I feel like this is kind of a nod to that as we get kind of the first outing of this new group of heroes here, new X-Men, you might say. And maybe that's why I'm getting vibes of like X-Men, the animated series, while reading this issue. But so Jitter's trying to save Death Dream here, who got taken out in a previous issue by these Sentinel hunting, or these Sentinel dogs that are hunting mutants. And she's got some like previous medical experience. Basically, she's trying to keep him alive. She knows he's got broken ribs. She feels a pulse, and she tells Ransom, this character here, that he needs to go and find some sterile needles, and they'll be able to maybe bring him back to life. So Calico, she's kind of using her full mutant powers here for the first time. She's got her horse Ember here as well, and I really like this design on her when she's like in her full mutant power. I think she's a pretty cool character. She almost is like a Phoenix Valkyrie kind of mashup. Um, so Ransom, he's able to get those needles for Jitter. They do a Pulp Fiction on Death Dream here. Calico is battling all the mutant dogs, Sentinel dogs, I mean, and they do the Pulp Fiction on Death Dream. They bring him back to life. We've got Karina Ellis. She's the doctor who hates mutants. She's basically the bad villain of this whole series, and she's the Saturday morning cartoon villain of this series, essentially. And she's not very happy because this is all happening in the eye of the public, you know, in a public mall. She's got Lawrence Trask here, the son of Bolivar Trask, I believe, who was the original, you know, creator of the Sentinel program, and he's here working with Karina Ellis. And the Sentinels dogs here are kind of like, when this one that got damaged, it starts targeting just the civilians, as he says, and Dr. Ellis isn't happy that this is all happening out in the public eye because it's making all the heroes, all the mutants look like heroes. So, and she's like, "What, are you just gonna like kill a bunch of teenagers in broad daylight? Like, it's not a very good plan." So, Wolverine Jubilee, they show up here. They're trying to get through the barricade, which I think is kind of an odd. You'd think like these guys who've like saved the world hundreds of times over might be famous or more well known or whatever, but the cop does let him through. And then Jubilee, she says, "I'm single at the moment, by the way," sorta. And that's what I mean. A lot of jokes all throughout this. Some of them land, some of them really don't, but the writer's trying to keep a lighthearted tone throughout all of this, even though there are some serious moments that they build up to throughout this series, like when Death Dream got taken out, but they bring him back to life though. Um, but here we got you could almost hear the X-Men music kicking in from the cartoon at this point. Wolverine and Jubilee showing up, Nightcrawler, they're saving civilians. This Ransom character has like some sort of mutant power, sort of like Bishop's, I think, where he can like absorb when he gets hit and then turn it into like his own superpower, mutant, you know, super strength or energy blasts or whatever. Um, I like this panel here. Wolverine slicing through the dogs. So they get Death Dream back here, and I guess he can like control. I don't even know what his powers are. They're kind of vague, but he explains that there's organic materials from like real dogs used in these machines. So even though he can't control inorganic material, since they have those little like biologics in him, he's able to shut them down basically. So we see a cool splash page here. I really like the artwork in this book. It's got kind of an indie feel to it, almost. And I'm not too familiar with the artist, but I know he's done a little bit of work on X-Men before. But I do like his style. So we see very much in a Saturday morning cartoon style here. The villains have been foiled. They're kind of all arguing with each other. We know they'll be back next week to try and take the heroes out again. So I kind of like that. I like this tone that's been set, at least with they're kind of bumbling villains, which is something you kind of don't get anymore in comic books. We do get a little bit of an epilogue here too, which also makes it feel like the cartoon with Rogue and Gambit. They're out having a good time. And we see sneaking behind the corner this creepy hand saying that he's going to skin Rogue alive. So that's not good. I've never liked that Rogue and Gambit are able to kiss each other now. It was always such a great dynamic that they were, so in love but unable to touch each other. Things are a lot different now, though. I would like to see that status quo go back to how it used to be. Um, and then we get a letters page here for Uncanny X-Men. It's not even titled like X-Mail or anything. And I'm not to sound too cynical, but I'm always dubious of these letters in Marvel comics. They always just have a name, maybe a place where they came from, Texas. I mean, I don't know. I'm always dubious if these are real or just written by the editor himself. But let me know what you guys think about Uncanny X-Men, the current X-Men line. Are you reading it? We're about to go into this X-Men crossover, X-Manhunt. It says, at the end of the Orcus War, Charles Xavier surrendered himself to the authorities and allowed himself to be imprisoned in Grey Malkin Prison. But now something has spurred him into action, into escaping his incarceration and embarking on a mad scramble across the nation. What has caused Professor X to go on the run? I don't know. I'm not too excited about this upcoming storyline here. Seems to me that it might just lead into another X-Men reboot. Seems like it's about time for that. But overall, I enjoyed this issue. I like this series so far. This one and the other X-Men series. I did hear that they just canceled X-Force and NYX, which I'm not too surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if X-Factor and Phoenix also get canceled. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. And thanks again for watching. If you made it this far, you like videos like this, please think about subscribing if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys on the next one.